Okay, and for those of you who just stepped in, the slide deck is at that URL if you want to download them. So, first of all, thanks for coming up, coming after what must have been a very interesting lunch to take your post-prandial snooze in our presence. So we are going to be doing this tutorial on synthesizing explainable and deceptive behavior for human-AI interaction. It sort of is probably strange to talk about human-AI interaction and in the very second breath say deception. Why would you want to understand how to deceive? Why would you want to understand why AI systems should deceive humans? But as we'll find out in a minute, in general, it's basically the two sides of the same coin. The cooperation and the adversarial behavior are just two sides of the same coin. And so, in fact, it's worth understanding, how that happens too. So the way the structure of the tutorial essentially is the four of us are going to be doing this. We are mostly going to be tag teaming one after other. I'll show you in a bit the actual pieces where the handover occurs. So that's myself, Tathagata, who's done quite a bit of work in this area. He's at IBM right now. And Sharath Sridharan, who's done also a whole bunch of work in this area. And Anagha, who is not only has done a lot of work in this area, but she's also very much into deception. So she will actually talk a lot about that aspect too. While a bunch of this is based on work that we have been doing in the lab, it's also, the tutorial itself actually covers lots of related work. So we go out of our way to make connections to a variety of concepts related to human-AI interaction. So that's something that it actually is meant to be a tutorial, not just a talk about our work. Like I said, that's where the slides are. And so this is the sort of the approximate syllabus, which may not make too much sense right now, but I'll come back to it in a minute. But this is a slide that you keep seeing all through the tutorial to see where you are, essentially. So my bit is to actually kind of introduce the area and sort of get you to understand the scope of the tutorial and which pieces will actually get done. And then Anagha and Tathagata and Sharath will do various pieces. Then I'll come back and we can have more question and answer session. In general, since this is, we actually do have probably more than enough time. So if you have questions at any point of time, please feel free to stop us. Especially this is afternoon session, and I really do not want us all to fall asleep. I have a much nicer room to sleep, in fact, if I want to sleep, so I would rather not sleep here. So anyway, so that's the thing. So whenever you have any questions, please raise your hand, and it's a small enough room, we should be able to have a conversation. Okay, so so let me try to give you some introduction about what the lay of the land is for this tutorial. So in case, obviously, all of us are aware of the fact, unless you just crawled out of under the rock recently, AI is sort of bigger than you suppose. It's sort of bigger than you can suppose. It's been overhyped in both positive ways and in negative ways. It's either going to solve all the world's problems or it's going to kill us all. One of those two is likely to happen apparently. So while this is going on, the kind of thing that I really wish I had more of a hype about is AI systems actually working with humans in the loop and basically trying to help them as needed. So I would like to see at some point of time a CNN breaking news like this saying AI helps an old lady cross the street, it plays with kids, cooks food, and hangs around sans drama. No drama, just like boring life between us and our AI systems. This hasn't really been happening, unfortunately, because I just made this up. This is currently fake news. You don't ever really see this kind of a stuff in the news cycle. I mean, you really want to get news people to take attention to what you're doing, you should say we are about to end the civilization. That typically gets a lot more attention. saying that AI systems are working with humans obviously doesn't seem to. But in addition to just the outside world, it's interesting that AI as a discipline had a curious ambivalence to humans. I mean, as you know, we've been going around doing this discipline called AI since 1956 at least. But for much of our existence in research, our systems seem happiest either far away from humans. Mars seems to be a good place, no people around, you can have lots of fun, or screaming the heck out of humans. You basically have systems trying to defeat humans in some game or other, so mostly adversarial aspects. John Lennon once said that you want to help humanity, it's the people that you just can't stand. And I sort of feel as if AI systems have this problem too, AI researchers have this problem too. We want to help people, humanity, but really working with people seems very boring. So to some extent, there's not been that much work. In fact, if you take an intro to AI course, you would not talk about AI-human interaction. Why not? Partly that's something that I'm going to address here. So of all the intelligences, the different kinds of intelligences humans have that AI systems try to replicate, this emotional and social and communicating intelligence, which really is very important for us to get along. For those of you who are old enough, you might know this comic called Rodney Dangerfield, who would say, I don't get no respect. They never got any respect. If you were working on social intelligence, for AI systems, that would not have been something that was very hard for quite a long time. Obviously, things have changed now, and at least in the beginning, part of the reason for this reluctance to some extent, and it's worthwhile understanding this, is there was this worry that if AI systems were to work with humans, if there's human in the loop, that would be the way AI systems will be cheating. And this is not an unwarranted worry. In fact, as you know, from the very beginning of Mechanical Turk, the original Mechanical Turk was not something that Jeff Bezos did. It was basically this contraption that would go from one European kingdom to another European kingdom trying to play chess. This is a robot that will play chess, except there is actually a human really, really deep inside the loop who was doing the actual chess, okay? This is the original human in the loop, and of course we still have the current version of this Mechanical Turk. Those of you who might have heard of Sophia, which is basically, to me, I think of this as, that's a Mechanical Turk, this is a Mechanical Saud. She is the citizen of Saudi Arabia, apparently. And it's obviously this stuff too, for those of you are aware of what's going on with Sophia. There's a lot of subterfuge and there's a lot of prestidigitation involved. So this becomes humans in the loop always meant something bad, slightly bad. Okay. So I was worried about this, and so 2 years back when I got a chance to talk to AAAI, I had a talk on challenges of human-aware AI systems, and we talked about specifically why is it this, why don't we have human-aware AI systems interacting with humans. The research topics on that, why isn't it a lot more popular than they were at the currently are, and why we should pursue it, and some of the research challenges and long-term issues. I looked at that at that time, and in fact, one of the points that I tried to make, and it's come out today too, to some extent, is really we have the brains we have. I mean, it's been said that most of us are always depressed about our brains, but we have the brains we have not because we need to run away from the tigers or lions, but we have to always deal with each other. We are continually mental modeling each other's mental states and trying to use that to decide how to behave in such a way to either cooperate or deceive, etc. So social intelligence is very much a bigger part of our intelligence, and so essentially AI systems having social intelligence is really opens the goal. I mean, that it becomes a much bigger, broader aim for AI systems. I don't know how many of you already are aware of it. This is a little test called Sally Ann test, and it's a nice quiz to take right now. So this is Sally in a red shirt, and this is Ann in blue. Sally comes into the room, she puts her ball in the yellow box, and Sally goes away. Okay, Then after Sally goes away, Anne takes the ball from the yellow box, puts it in the gray box. Okay? Now you're seeing all this. You're seeing this whole fun, right? At this point, Sally came into the room. My question to you, since you're still alive and awake, where do you think Sally will look for her ball? Okay? Any of you are thinking, what should be done? You clearly have difficulty in doing mental modeling. Okay? So it's well known that little kids have trouble realizing that what they believe in might be different from what other people believe in. And up until you realize that your model of the world might be different from somebody else's model of the world, in fact, there is no question of mental modeling. And once you do realize that, all sorts of interesting things happen. For example, you realize that to cooperate, you need to work hard at it, because just because you know something doesn't mean people working with you know the exact same thing. And also you can use it for basically deception. So I keep saying this when I give these kind of talks, that when my son told his first lie so many years back, I was really happy, because I knew he had a working brain. And to some extent, you only mostly been told not to lie, it's a bad thing. Not to lie is being able to realize that you know how to lie, but decide not to lie. That's what people are talking about. If you have a damaged brain, you don't even understand how to lie, because you don't realize that what you believe in may be different from what other people believe in. And lying actually comes very much as part of this mental modeling, as something that we will talk about in this tutorial. Okay. This is old stuff, but I think I think that's Chinese translation of what Phoebe and Rachel are saying, that in the old Friends, there's a beautiful Friends episode that you can watch tonight, where they are actually doing this almost K-level mental modeling, with Phoebe saying, they don't know that we know, that they know that we know. This is the level of games we can play with each other. We don't really want AI systems to play that level of games, but they should at least understand the first level of it for them to be able to cooperate with us. That's the point I'm trying to make. So you have an architecture of an intelligent agent. This is the kind of thing that we look at in the Intro to AI class. And the question, of course, is if I then, this agent essentially is interacting with the world, and we basically assume this world contains tables, chairs, water, and also people. And we didn't particularly care to differentiate between people versus other random inanimate stuff. But if you actually realize that the AI system realizes that there are people there, and in particular there is this one single, a couple of people whom you are trying to cooperate with or to do adversarial behavior with, it becomes important to be able to not only keep track of what your actions do to the world, but what your actions do to the other person's beliefs about you, the human in the loop's beliefs about you. Okay, so in particular, this is a busy slide. We will come back to this, and some of this notation becomes clearer as we go on through the tutorial. But I just want you to realize that pretty much everything about what an intelligent agent does will be affected when it takes into account the possibility there is somebody else in the loop who is continually modeling its behavior. Now, you might say, why can't we get humans who don't model other things? We don't have such humans. Humans always are anthropomorphizing whatever and whoever they're dealing with. Okay, so they are going to anthropomorphize AI systems. They're going to actually attribute beliefs to them. They're going to attribute goals to them, and they would basically behave with them to the extent they get along with the AI agents. It would be because they are able to do that. And so the only ways AI systems can work with them is by themselves. They themselves have to model the mental states of the humans. So we've been pushing this. Actually, this stuff is now what LeechGuide 2016. We had a special theme on human-aware AI. There's a whole bunch of interest in human-AI collaboration now. Of course, this is partnership for AI. One of its thematic pillars is collaboration between people and AI systems. This has become very popular now. Lots of, at least in the US, lots of national research initiatives are very much interested in human-AI collaboration, including the current administration actually has a pretty strong Office of Science and Technology Policy, They came out with these strategies for doing AI research right now, and number two is develop effective methods for human AI collaboration. So again, things have become a lot more interesting on this front for a while. So as far as this tutorial is concerned, the real question we're trying to ask to some extent is, what does it take for an AI agent to show either explainable or deceptive behavior in the presence of human agents? Between explainable and deceptive is completely nonsensical behavior, where you are just doing whatever you're doing and the people can't make sense of it. That is non-deliberate. So if you just randomly don't model people in the loop, your behavior is likely to be nonsensical. Either you want to cooperate or to deliberately deceive, you actually have to model it. So the simple answer to this, actually, in this tutorial is that to synthesize explainable behavior, it should not be surprising to you by this time, that AI agents need to go beyond just sort of deciding what behavior they are producing to reach their own goals, but also take into account the mental model of the humans in the loop. For the mental models, what are their beliefs, what are their goals, what are their actions, what are their capabilities. And when you have that, that's the first level. Furthermore, you also should want to actually take into account humans' own model of the AI agents' capabilities. So the idea is, when I'm talking to you, I know that you're already modeled. You have some model of what it is that I'm trying to do. And I have to take that into consideration in deciding whether or not my next action is likely to be comprehensible to you or not. So if I feel like dancing right now, I might suppress that urge because I have this sense that you didn't come to see me dance. Okay, so unless I just want you to wake you up or something, which I might do, if you keep on falling asleep, then I will dance and you'll wake up and you'll then will again go back to boring stuff. Okay, so the idea being that you want to keep this at least second level. Of course, in the friends example, we are doing 4 levels, and there are epistemologists, epistemic logic people say it can be infinite regress. What we're going to try and tell you is at least 2 levels will give us very interesting sets of capabilities. So that sort of leads us to this tutorial syllabus. I'm still in the middle of this introduction. We will then talk about how to provide behavior that makes sense to the human in the loop, and if it doesn't make sense to the human in the loop, provide an explanation which involves you deliberately asking them to change their model of the AI system's capabilities so that what the system is doing would become interpretable. And then, of course, we'll talk about how you could also use this to manipulate people's mental models to actually tell white lies if you want to. To some extent, cooperation sometimes, as the cooperation involves, actually telling them how to change their model of your behavior and your capabilities. But you could push them into believing things that are not true. You, the AI agent, which would be actually lying. And then we'll talk also about some application scenarios, and I'll show you some examples of right now, but we'll talk more about it at the And that's basically one level direction where this drill is going to go. Now, since I kept talking about models, let me show these 3 slides. That if you have a robot and you don't care, you're on Mars, you don't care about anything else, just you want to work with your own goals and so on. So you have a model of your own model of the world, the robot's model of the world, which it then uses to basically reach its goals. So again, much of this tutorial is sort of agnostic to whether the specific kind of decision model you use. You could use deterministic planning, you can use Markov decision processes if you are interested in stochastic dynamics and so on. We will give specific examples with specific models just so that it will be concrete, but most of the top level ideas are essentially are not dependent on it being a very specific kind of model. So if you have MR, then basically the robot can use that to sort of come up with a behavior that will reach its goals. If you are into reward metrics, then it will be optimizing the cumulative reward. Now, if there's a human in the loop, at the minimum, the human has their own model. Yes? Right.
So, I don't need to for when you take questions.
As I said, you can stop me like just now. So I prefer that if people have questions, and I at least know how to handle questions. My students, but some of the other speakers may or may not. But so please ask me.
Thank you. I just want to clarify. Did I understand you saying that the way humans think is by models? So the only way the AI system can work is on their own? I saw a discrepancy.
No, all I'm saying is that when there are humans in the loop, they will go ahead and attribute a model to the robot. You know, I mean, there are these psychological, studies. In fact, there's this beautiful, very old psychological studies of sticks going around on a video screen, and then kids will start basically thinking of them as the sticks actually have goals and beliefs and so on. That's how the whole entire animation industry works. We don't really need, we anthropomorphize everything. And so humans do that, and so to work with humans, AI systems have to play that game. It's the same question about emotions, by the way. I still don't know whether AI systems need emotions to somehow do better performance-wise, okay? It's not, the jury is completely out on why we have emotions. But we do. There's no way we can shut them off, right? And so if a system has to work with us, it better at least understand and fake its own emotions. It's been told that those of you who might remember the Clippy the paperclip from the Microsoft, Rosalind Picard once pointed out that one of the many reasons why there was a spontaneous applause when Clippy the paperclip, which was supposedly trying to help people who are sad enough to use Microsoft products, the reason it basically, there was a huge spontaneous applause when it was retired is because essentially, as she said, when Clippy comes, it always had a smug look on its face. And the Clippy would come when you are in trouble because you got stuck somewhere. And so you don't want, if you're stuck somewhere, somebody comes with a smug look on their face, you feel like punching them, not taking their help. Again, this sort of syntax matters because it's not so much that the robots need the emotions, it is that we have emotions and we are going to expect emotions. It's the same thing for the modeling. It's we will model the robot's capability so the robot better take that into consideration. That's my point. Okay. So the human, when there's a human in the loop, human themselves might have their own model of the way the world is working. Now, if you are aware of this, at this point, it's just this is human's model, and if the robot then has like a approximation of that, MHR is the robot's approximation of the human. I'll say robot, but basically any AI system, that it can use that to assist, to avoid getting into the way, to sort of do some minimum teaming activities and so on. So that's like the first level. The second level is that, as I said, the moment there's a human in the loop, not only will they have their own model of the world, but they will make a model of the robot's capabilities. You're not going to be able to stop them. That's what they're going to do. And so then the robot has to take a version of, an approximation of that in deciding its behavior. So that winds up being this M hat RH, which is robot's approximation of what the human thinks robot's capabilities are. I tell you that that's the most important thing. In fact, your approximation of what you think my goals, my capabilities are, is what is stopping me from breaking into a song and dance sequence right now. Because you don't expect me to do that, so I'm not going to do it. Okay? So that once you have that MRH, that will be allowing us to do interpretable behavior. The behavior can essentially sort of conform to what people are expecting. In fact, if you behave the way people are expecting, you don't have to ever open your mouth because you're doing exactly what was expected of you. If on the other hand, it's not the case that, if the expectations are kind of violated, then you want to provide an explanation as to how the model that the human has of your capabilities, the AI system's capabilities, is actually different from what the reality is. And that involves changing the model. So basically conveying some model differences to the human in the loop. And that would be explanatory dialogue. So that's where all this stuff about how, in every piece of this intelligent agent interaction, it needs to take into account how its actions are affecting these models. That's what we will be looking at. Now, what causes differences in mental models? Basically, the humans might have different expectations on the capabilities of the AI system. They might have different expectations on the state of the world than the robot thinks is the current state of the world. The goals may be different. Sensor models might be different. What the human sees might be different from what the robot sees, and so they wind up not, being on the same page. And they might, of course, also be using different representations. That means they don't even have a common vocabulary, in which case explanations become a lot more difficult. Okay. Now, where do these kind of models come from? In some cases, basically you start with the same model of the environment as some of the examples I tell you. For example, in search and rescue kind of scenarios, the human and the AI system might start with the same floor map of the environment. But then the robot winds up knowing more things have changed because it's actually in the disaster scenario, and it sees that more corridors are closed and there's more debris in some places. New things may have opened up because things have, like, where they used to be a door, the door collapsed, and so you in fact got through, etc. So those sort of things can happen. Sometimes you can learn these in over longitudinal interactions with humans in the loop, and both of those are things that we will discuss, in the different parts of this work. In terms of applications that we will look at, I want to show you a few slides on that just to get a sense of what kind of applications will be discussed here. First of all, by the way, these are all the conferences where work that we're being discussed has been published by various people. So there's a variety of AI conferences as well as human-computer interaction conferences that are interested in these research issues. And so, of course, some obvious things always existed. For example, intelligent tutoring systems. From the day one, it was clear that an AI system trying to tutor a human being better have a model of the human being. There is like no other way. It's not like intelligent tutoring systems are there on Mars. Who are the teachers? Right? Similarly, social robotics. There's been a lot of pioneering work by people like Brazil, and Brans, Castellati, and Benz, also Brazil, who basically talked about having these little robots that play with kids, and they need to have some minimal abilities to do modeling of the humans in the loop. But those are not the only things. In fact, part of the examples that I'll show you are much more quotidian and much less of just the playing with the kids kind of variety. My point is that, in fact, AI systems, in pretty much any scenario, if there's a human in the loop, they need to model the human's mental state. Otherwise, the effectiveness would be completely, compromised. Okay? So that's basically, so we may need modeling in the case of assistants, human-aware digital personal assistants, office and hospital assistants, and also you can be using this in the teaming scenarios where you essentially half the problem is solved by the human, half the problem is solved by the AI system, for example, in collaboration. So to give examples, this actually, Tathagata will talk more about this later. But here is a scenario which sort of tells you there's a human as a commander's role, and then the robot is in the disaster zone. And so they will wind up having, beginning models they may have shared, and then they start slowly diverging because things are happening on the ground that the robot happens to know. And of course, the goals may have changed from the point of view of the commander. And so this involves essentially, some of these issues about how does the robot show interpretable behavior? How does it know what to tell the humans if it cannot show interpretable behavior? That's the explanation part. This one essentially is saying, sometimes you have an assistant which is mostly playing a reactive role, but then suddenly it starts providing proactive assistance. If you're giving assistance to people and if you have no sense of their mental model currently, then your assistance is likely to be nonsensical and people are likely to shut you off. Okay. So that's another example. This one essentially is, of course, the intelligent tutoring systems. In the case of tutoring systems, you clearly need to have a sense of this modeling of the human's mental state in the loop. And then any kind of decision support systems. In our own group, we have worked with NASA mission planning, or kind of scenarios where the humans still do the planning, but a background system, an AI system, tries to help them come up with better plans. Okay. Now, how do you do this without removing the control away from the humans? Where basically you could just say, stop, you're going crazy. I'll just make the plan and just take this plan now. That doesn't work most of the time because there are many more constraints that the AI system is not aware of. And so what it comes up with as a solution may not be a good solution from the human's perspective. And so it needs to sort of have a dialogue, and you need to provide suggestions that make sense based on their current mental state. And that winds up being very useful. There is one other more recent one. Actually, I believe there is like a demo at AAAI that IBM folks are doing with Kadagata, which essentially is a scenario where, in fact, some human is providing like a dialogue model to sort of an AI system, like in this particular AI planning system, which can then come up with a dialogue management routine. Except the humans might not have specified the model correctly. And so this, the interaction is a way for the humans to figure out what went wrong so that they will, correct the model. Okay. So again, debugging becomes easier if your AI system will help you, essentially. So those are some of the explanations. One other thing that I want to say, two more things before we kind of end this part of a tutorial. I kept talking about humans, and anything we do, we are humans, so we know what we want. But that's an oxymoron. I kind of tend to say that engineers thinking they know what humans want is a bit of an oxymoron to begin with, because maybe we don't completely understand what humans want, and there really are systematic ways in which you can actually figure out the ideas that you have help or hurt a cooperative scenario, which is basically controlled experiments with humans in the loop. And so anybody working in this area who don't know what IRB is, in US IRB is Institutional Review Board, which basically you have to go through if you want to do any experiments on humans. You're not giving them injections, but you are playing with their minds. So you need to get that. If you don't know what IRB is, you're kidding yourself in saying I'm into human-aware or human AI interaction, because it basically has to be done that way. And so we will talk about some of the ways, the evaluation of these kinds of techniques. It's pretty hard, but we can't just assume that I know that's what humans like, so we'll just do it. So evaluation is a very important thing. So in our case, for example, again, so I want to give you an example of the Tesla Autopilot, which itself is a stupid name for an assistant. How do you call an assistant an autopilot and assume that people don't misunderstand that? And